Day 138 of the war in Gaza, while the Hamas Khan Yunis brigade has now been defeated. There is still much work to be done in and around the former terrorist stronghold. There are also signs of growing protests against Hamas from the Gazan people. More on this from ILTV's Steve Leibovitz.
The organized Hamas brigade in Khan Yunis now no longer exists as an organized fighting force. Much effort is focused now on gathering Hamas weapons left behind by fleeing or surrendering gunmen. The IDF released footage showing a cache of weapons found by the paratroopers brigade in a building adjacent to a United Nations school. Some 60 operatives who hid at the school among Palestinian civilians were taken prisoner. According to the IDF, Hamas operatives would hide in the UN school, which was used as a shelter for Palestinian civilians. They would then sneak into a nearby building via a hole in the wall to attack Israeli troops. The paratroopers also raided the home of the head of the Khan Yunis Brigade's anti-tank unit and seized weapons and intelligence materials. The brigade is working to facilitate the evacuation of Palestinian civilians from their areas of operations in Khan Yunis and Rafah further south. Residents of Jabalia in the northern Gaza Strip and Rafah in the south took to the streets to protest against Hamas leaders. Since the start of the conflict, there have been several protests by Gazan residents who condemn Hamas for bringing the war and abandoning the people. In footage circulated on Palestinian social media, residents call out against Hamas leaders in Gaza, Yahya Sinwar, and against the organization's political bureau chief, Ismail Haniyeh, who continues to live in luxury in Qatar. Israel is determined to move on the city of Rafah, but the last major Hamas stronghold is temporary home to some 1.3 million Palestinians displaced from elsewhere in Gaza. The IDF plans to give the civilians passage to safe areas before the offensive begins.
And Hamas sexual violence during the October 7th rampage was both systematic and deliberate, and continues on hostages in captivity. Those are the findings published today by the Association of Rape Crisis Centers in Israel. Sexual violence was committed on a wide scale during the October 7th massacre, and these crimes continue against hostages held in Gaza. According to an extensive report released today by the Association of Rape Crisis Centers in Israel, there were multiple attackers. Sexual assaults were carried out in front of victims' relatives and amid murders, and included uniquely sadistic practices. According to the report, there were instances of rape and sexual violence carried out in 4 areas: during onslaught against the Nova Festival, on the communities close to the Gaza border, on military bases, and attacks ongoing against the hostages held in Gaza captivity. The report details rape committed while the victims were threatened with weapons, with multiple instances of gang rape of victims. The report says women, girls, and men were all targeted for sexual assault. In most cases, the victims were murdered after or even during the rape. The document was compiled by researchers who analyzed both confidential and public information, including the testimonies of eyewitnesses. The association says it will submit the report of what it called the sadistic sex crimes of Hamas to the United Nations for action.